Three panels today, and before we take the roll, and before we all stand to pledge allegiance to our nation's flag, just wanted to remind the members that this is a time for us to gather information from our testifiers, and we will have further opportunities to debate each other on this topic, which I know is an emotionally charged topic for some of you. So while our testifiers are here as our guests, I would appreciate you treating them as our guests and not engaging with them on debate, but asking them questions that they can then give you the answers to help us further the future debate and gather the information that will be helpful in that future debate. But they're not here to debate today. They are here to provide testimony and provide answers to questions that you might have, but please be respectful and treat them as our guests and not as a colleague who you will try and rip apart in debate. With that, if I could ask everybody to please rise, and Representative O'Neill, sir, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I could ask our member secretary to call the roll, please. Our member secretary is Representative Lee James from Venango County.
Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Chairman. Members, Chairman Metcalf. Here. Armanini. Here. Borowitz.
Here.
Cook.
Here.
Ham. James here. Kale. Kenzie. O'Neill.
Here.
Bertite.
Here.
Kraft.
Here.
Sankey. Schemmel.
Here.
Stambaugh. Here. Warner. Chairman Vitale. Here. Fiedler.
Here.
Guzman.
Here.
Aaron. Leave. Hohenstein.
Here. Thank you, Rep. Johnny.
Sure. Isaacson.
Here.
Majewski.
Here.
Zerger. Leave. Otten. Snyder.
Virtual.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. So that was Representative Pam Snyder that said virtual. Thank you for tuning in. Who else is on? Representative Sankey is also on virtual. If I could ask all of our testifiers in the first panel to come forward, please. We starting off with Mr. Greg Wrightstone, Executive Director of CO2 Coalition. Dr. Patrick Michaels is also going to be presenting today, but I don't believe he's here yet. So Dr. David Legates has been kind enough to switch positions, and Dr. Legates is from the University of Delaware, Professor of Climatology, and once again, Gregory Wrightstone, Executive Director of CO2 Coalition. Thank you, gentlemen. If you could both, we have changed rules this session. If I could ask you to please rise, which I should have asked you before you sat down, so I apologize for that. But we have a new rule that we adopted that we swear in our presenters and testifiers at committee meetings this session. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is true to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief? If so, please indicate by saying I do. Thank you both. And you can begin when you're ready, whoever would like to begin, and kick it off.
I'll get it started here. I'm Gregory Wrightstone, geologist, executive director of the CO2 Coalition, and an expert reviewer for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. I want to thank the chairman and the...
Greg, is the green light on your microphone there? We just need to press that button there, sir.
Oh, now it is.
There
Thank
you
you
go.
very much. Gregory Wrightstone, geologist, executive director of the CO2 Coalition. and expert reviewer for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. I want to thank the chairman and the committee for the opportunity to provide my perspective on climate change, and specifically on Governor Tom Wolf's proposal to enroll the Commonwealth into the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI. I'll focus my testimony today on the justifications that have been presented by Governor Wolf for the need to impose this large regulatory and taxation burden on the state's citizens and companies. The justifications for RGGI are listed in the 2018 Pennsylvania Climate Action Plan, which predicts occurrence of various climate catastrophes. I will refute these claims in my testimony this morning. The first of those claims is that man-made climate change is leading to increased precipitation and flooding. The first part of that is true. There has been a slight increase in precipitation over the last 100 to 120 years in the state, amounting to about 4 increased inches of precipitation per year. The slight increase in precipitation is already providing many benefits to the Commonwealth that were not addressed in the Climate Action Plan. These benefits include increased vegetation, crop growth, silage for livestock, snow for ski resorts, and a decrease in fire risk. The only downside to the increase, this modest increase in rainfall, would be an increase in devastating floods. So have those been occurring? The latest report of the well-respected IPCC states that it has a low confidence that there's a sign of a trend of globally increase in floods on a global scale. So the IPCC disagrees with that. In other words, the IPCC can discern no connection between the modest 0.8 degrees Celsius increase in temperature since 1900 and any increase in change in flooding. Can I ask for a bottle of water if there is one, please? Excuse me. Governor Wolf seems fixated on the belief that flooding is being made worse by climate change. However, the governor makes the common mistake of conflating weather with climate. For example, he makes much of the 2018 flooding in Harrisburg, but that event ranks just 31st on the list of greatest floods in Harrisburg. That's only a bit more than half the record set by Tropical Storm Agnes in '72, and nearly reached by the Great Flood of '36. The data from the Ohio, Allegheny, and Susquehanna Rivers showed decline in the average crest of floods over the last century, while the data from Bucks County shows similar decline in the number of floods. So my fact check on increasing flooding is false and misleading. The second claim is that droughts are increasing. In order for droughts to occur, there needs to be two things: aridity and intense heat waves. We've seen in the previous section that rainfall is increasing slightly, and we shall see in the next section that heat waves are not increasing. Please excuse me. Neither of the two required elements for drought to occur are happening. Figure 3 shows annual Pennsylvania drought and aridity as accessed from NOAA. This chart clearly shows a decrease in aridity, and again the IPCC states it has a low confidence in global scale observed trend in drought or dryness. It's the middle of the 20th century. The data and the experts agree that droughts are not increasing. My fact check on increasing drought, false and misleading. There's little dispute that the longest and most intense heat waves, excuse me, must be that aridity in the atmosphere, pardon me. In fact, 3 heat waves are increasing. There's little dispute that the longest and most intense heat waves in the United States occurred some 80 years ago in the 20s and 30s. Data from the University of Alabama and the US EPA confirmed this warming occurred before the sharp rise of carbon dioxide following World War II. My fact check on increasing heat waves, false and misleading. The fourth claim is increased health risks from worsening air and water pollution. Our air and water today are cleaner than in more than 100 years and getting cleaner every year. According to the EPA, the concentrations of air pollutants in the United States have dropped by double-digit percentages since 1990.
They're out looking for a cup that looks like the water cooler doesn't have any cups in it.
I've already had COVID, so it's not that. So rest assured.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, and tested positive for antibodies, so I'm good. Pennsylvania is home to 5 major rivers and many thousands of tributaries that each year have their own history of pollution and subsequent cleanup. Nearly all of these waterways have seen tremendous water quality improvements over the last several decades. Once polluted waters around the state are now home to fishing tournaments, like the annual event in Pittsburgh that features fishing in all 3 of Pittsburgh's famous rivers, once infamously contaminated. The claim that Pennsylvania's air and water quality are declining is shown to be factually incorrect and divorced from reality. My fact check on worsening air and water quality, false and misleading. The 5th claim is that rising sea level will cause more flooding in southeastern Pennsylvania. According to the 2018 climate assessment, the Delaware River Basin communities can expect, including Philadelphia, can expect more frequent flooding and associated disruptions due to sea level rise that presumably is caused by anthropogenic warming. Fortunately, very good data suggests otherwise. Relative sea level is the combination of sea level rise and geologic downwarping of the bedrock. The relative sea level at the tide gauge in Philadelphia, if we could show that, shows a rise of 12 inches over the last century at a remarkably steady rate. Approximately 4 inches of that rise can be attributed to waterfront subsidence and ongoing geological shifts resulting from the retreat of glaciers at the end of the last ice age. Since long-term sea level rise has been steady over the last 150 years, it's likely that Philadelphia has seen 24 to 30 inches of relative sea level rise over the last 250 years. Having already adapted to 250 years of rising sea levels, Philadelphia, with modern technological abilities and capabilities, can expect to easily adapt to the projected 8 inches or so of rise between now and 2100. Fact check on dangerous sea level rise, false and misleading. The 2018 Pennsylvania Climate Action Plan forecasts a future harm to the agricultural and dairy sector because of man-made climate change. Is that the case? The short answer is no. The Climate Action Plan ignores the many benefits that are accruing to our ecosystems and agriculture from modestly rising temperatures and increasing CO2. Contrary to the predictions of looming famine in the Keystone State, facts on the ground present a story of agricultural bounty and increases in production. Agricultural production in Pennsylvania and around the world continue to break records year after year. The increase in temperature results in longer growing seasons. Killing frosts end earlier in the spring and arrive later in the fall, leading to more plantings and harvests. The benefits of warming are turbocharged by CO2 fertilization effect, which significantly enhances crop and foliage growth. Corn is by far the largest agricultural product in Pennsylvania, with more than 15,000 farms growing. Figure 10, if you go back one there, reveals a stunning relationship between corn yield per acre and increasing global emissions. In Pennsylvania, both corn yields in tons per acre and milk yield in pounds per cow are improving every year. The facts from down on the farm paint an entirely different picture than that presented by the governor and the Climate Action Plan. By every metric, the dairy and agricultural sector are thriving and improving with no end in sight. My fact check on declining agricultural productivity, false and misleading. In summary, there is no climate crisis and no need for RGGI. Historical data show the Wolf administration's prediction of climatic disaster is blatant fear-mongering meant to advance a destructive anti-science agenda. Instead of imposing a program that would destroy Pennsylvania's billion-dollar fossil fuel industry and tens of thousands of associated jobs, government bodies tasked with reviewing Governor Wolf's proposal should follow the science and reject RGGI. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Legates, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you. I am David R. Legates, professor and climatologist at the University of Delaware. I served as a Delaware State climatologist from 2005 to 2011. Recently, I was on leave as the Assistant Deputy Secretary of Commerce for Environmental Observation and Prediction, was detailed to the White House as Executive Director of the United States Global Change Research Program. I would like to thank both the chairman and the committee for the opportunity to provide my perspective of 40 years of experience in climate change. Efforts to manipulate the future climate usually focus on trends in the current climate and model projections of what the future climate is likely to be. Other speakers have or will eloquently describe the problems associated with interpretation of the data and the issues associated with climate models. So let me focus then on the molecule that is supposedly responsible for the destruction of our climate, carbon dioxide. Please note that carbon dioxide is not the most important greenhouse gas. That honor goes to water vapor, which is responsible for nearly 90% of the net warming of the planet due to the radiative impact of the Earth's atmosphere. However, recent arguments have been posited that carbon dioxide is some form of a, quote, magical climate control knob, such that climate responds almost exclusively to the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We are told that conditions will only get worse, and that our only hope for both our planet and our children's future is to limit the production of fossil fuels with an ultimate goal of becoming carbon-free. In analyzing climate policy, legislators such as yourselves must be cognizant of three key considerations regarding the impact of projected rises in atmospheric carbon dioxide. They are: one, that policy choices likely have no measurable effect on the occurrence of severe weather; two, that positive effects on ecosystems and biodiversity must be considered; and three, carbon mitigation may not actually lead to a reduction